So for me, first of all, I would start by saying, I'm trying to mimic another saying, but I would say, it's only a fool that would say that school is scam. I would just drop that phrase. I think testimony has explained all of it. But who am I? As you can see on my screen, I'm Jessy Ezebuihe. I am a development economist so far. Currently, I'm doing my PhD in development economics at the University of Bonn in Germany. Before my PhD, which I started this year actually, I was and partially still is a consultant at the World Bank in Washington, D.C. I was there for 2.5 years. And then way before that, I was I had my master's in University of Göttingen. I was sponsored under the DAAD scholarship to study development economics. And before that again, I was working in Nigeria. I worked in an international NGO. I don't know if you guys know Mexico. They have their head office in Abuja, and then several in-country offices or regional offices in especially in the northern country like Borno, Gombe, and all that. Before that, I worked in a private NGO in Benin City because I served in Benin City at the University of Benin in the Department of Economics. And my first job experience was in a microfinance bank. So the microfinance bank was under the auspices of Michael Opera University of Agriculture, Umudike. So apart from my academic and educational background, I think I'm someone who, like I discussed with testimony some days back, I think I'm someone who think that it's important to go through the process to achieve whatever goal you have. And it doesn't matter, for me, I would prefer that you have a very big goal, a goal that sounds unreasonable to people to achieve, but working through or working towards that goal, for me, I think I'm someone who would recommend process a lot to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve, be it career goals, academic growth, social growth, personal life achievements, or other private personal life achievements. So testimony, I don't know if this explains, if this, I don't know, satisfies your question. I mean,
yeah,
what I just said. Okay.
Yeah, again, there are no right or wrong answers. It's just, again, just walking us through your journey, which you've done justice to. Thank you very much. So, as I mentioned, some people here are like fresh graduates. So what did you study? And I know you studied economics. So how did you even come about studying economics in the first place? Like, what was the driving force? What was your motivation? And how did you think economics was, how do you think studying economics in Nigeria shaped your career trajectory?
Okay. Yeah, you were my classmates in economics in UNS, so of course you know I studied economics. So how did I choose to be an economist? I would say I was driven mostly by what I call the purpose I feel that I'm in this world to achieve, the purpose of me coming to this world. I think if you ask me, that has always constantly been my reason for choosing, to be in a broader sense an economist. I would tell you in my SS2, or let's say in my JS3, SS1, I didn't know I wanted to be an economist. But then Of course, my parents preferred I did science, like pure science, physics, biology, and chemistry. But when I did all those courses and also did economist, I felt that I was more aligned, my personality was more aligned to economists. To be honest, as a child, I wanted to be an accountant. And why I wanted to be an accountant was because I had this classmate of mine who they also happened to live in the same street like we did. And the mother was an accountant, and I loved how sophisticated she was. So for me, I wanted to be an accountant. But when I also got exposed to accounting and finance, all the science courses, economists, and all that, I think I felt more aligned to economists. And I also felt like economists gives me an opportunity to be myself. It doesn't put me in a box, right? It gives you an opportunity to think, to have to be creative, to think outside the box, do something that is people haven't done in a very fast, in a very quick and immediate way. I don't think you can achieve that in physics, for example. It probably takes years, to come up with, or to prove a theory. But for economics, I feel it's something that evolves really quickly, and it's something I can evolve quickly with. And I think I've actually experienced that through, from when I started being an economist up until now. I would say, how was my experience in UNN? That was where I had my first degree. I can barely remember. A lot has happened. That's like almost a decade ago. Like, what do you expect? But I think what I would say is that when I started, well, everybody wanted to make a first class. Everybody wanted to make a first class. To be honest with you, I wanted to make a first class, but I wasn't sure I was going to make a first class. Let me put it, not because I didn't think I could make a first class, but when you want to achieve something, but you're not even sure if you're going to achieve it, and you don't even know why, right? So I wouldn't tell you that, oh, I just happened to make a first class at the end of the day. But I would say one thing that took me to making a first class, which by the way, making a first class is not, I don't know, anybody can make it, and also people don't make it for several reasons, and that doesn't mean that people who make first class are better or more intelligent than those who didn't. But my point is, I excelled in terms of grades in the university because I was more interested. I think at some point I forgot I wanted to make a first class, and I focused on, I wanted to know economics. I wanted to know economics. And I would say that is because I felt I was aligned with economics. I had tested the waters, and I had the assurance in me that I want to be an economist. I also think that's where people also get it wrong. If you don't feel attached to something, you don't take the time to study it. You don't take the time to, beyond all odds. And I can tell you, the moments that I spent studying economics, I would never see it as pain. In fact, when people ask me what's your, like, how was it getting a first class, I'm like, it's one of the easiest things that I've ever achieved, because it was just about getting to understand economics. I remember when I was in school, I would, especially from my second year, no matter, because then you know how it is in Nigeria now, like they'll just read from a script, from a paper they've had probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, and just you dictate some, don't even explain, and then you write down. When I used to, like in my first, second year, when I get back home and read those notes, I feel like I'm not getting the whole information. Like there are gaps. I could feel there are gaps between paragraphs. A lot of information that were missing in those notes that they dictated for us. So what I started doing was I had to go to the library, and then I would bring like 3 or 4 or even 2 economic textbooks at the same time and open them and read on the same topic. And in that way, not only did I really understand economics better, but I also became more intimate with economics, because I feel like I understood what I was being taught in class very well. In fact, I looked forward to the next class because I felt like, okay, I think I know a little bit of what you're going to talk about, and I can't wait to know more. I would say that was basically my experience in UNN. And also when I was in UNN, how did I decide to do development economics? I think it was an easy choice for me. I did some courses in finance. I think it's called financial economics. I didn't feel the same way I felt for probably courses like development economics. Like we have a subject called development. I didn't feel attached. For me, it's all about reading your environment and moving forward with the things you align with. It's just like friendship. I think career should also be like friendship. You can get into a room and there are a bunch of people there. You find one or two persons you connect with, and you see yourself just being like, there's like a magnet that draws the two, or force that draws the two of you together, and you start having conversations, and you'd realize that the conversation you have with that person will probably be memorable or enjoyable more than having conversations with other people you don't align with. So I feel like I just aligned with courses that were related to development, that wanted to make direct impact in the lives of people, wanted to make people, give people a better life, draw people out of poverty, improve the livelihood of people and the welfare of people. And I just felt aligned with development economics. And then when I started looking for scholarship to do my master's, I was also just naturally also aligned with development economics. I wouldn't like to. And even when I applied for courses that were in development economics, there's always a prayer I always make. I'm like, no matter how good I am, God, if this application I'm about to do doesn't align with my purpose or what the purpose you for which you created me into this world, no matter how good I am, let me not achieve it. And I think it also played out when I hope everybody's a Christian, but if you're not a Christian, I don't know, that's fine. I probably you would say the prayer differently, but I mean, I think it also applied when I was looking for scholarship, because the truth is I used similar essays, my documentations, my results didn't change over 1 year. And so somehow I just still, or maybe it was just the law of attraction. I don't know, for those who believe in law of attraction. But I was just able to get development economics for my master's in Germany. So the process of applying for masters, I think that's another topic for another day, testimony. But during my masters, what did I do? I think I repeated the same actions that I did during my days in UNN. I wanted to understand development economics. And I would tell you that knowing the content of the course I studied, my discipline, took me, allowed me to take the next steps in my career. It allowed me to, swiftly, not just doing it swiftly in my career. I remember when I was doing my master's, because for my master's, for every topic, they give you a bunch of research papers to read, but there's usually 1, 2, or 3 compulsory ones. And I kid you not, most of the times I read the 3 of them. I can tell you in a particular course, I read up to 30 research papers, just one, and multiply it by how many courses I did then, because I genuinely wanted to, to understand development economics. So I think, I'm not sure if I answered your answer completely, but I think if you ask me why I did economics, I think because I aligned more with it, and align more with it in terms of what I feel is my purpose. I feel like I'm a very compassionate person, and what course would allow me to be very compassionate at a large scale. It was development economics to be precise.
Wow, that's quite insightful. Essentially using your career to project who you are. That's good. So, what is development economics? Like, for some of us here, we know development. Some of us confuse development economics for philanthropy. Um, yeah, that's like where the confusion typically is. So, what is it? What is development economics practically, based on your work from your master's throughout the other parts of your career? What have you seen development economics to be right now?
So, in a nutshell, just in a very quick sentence, I would say that development economics is, of course, a branch of economics that studies the economic conditions and the well-being of people, especially those in middle and low-income countries. So, as development economics, you basically discover, you basically improve, and you also evaluate evidence-based policies and programs. So I know a lot of us here probably have if you're an economist, you would have heard of policy making. So as a development economist, you are part of the economists that help government to find out what are the policies that might be relevant to achieve a particular goals, and how efficient is this policy, and how efficient in terms of effectiveness and cost, and basically how can this policy affect the lives of the people. So sometimes when you say development economy, someone will say, oh, it's just trying to improve the lives of the poor. That's like the flag bearer of the term development economics, but it goes beyond that. As a development economist, of course, you can work in government agencies, or organizations, you can work in NGOs, you can work in universities as an academia or a researcher, you can work in think tanks. And the good thing about development economics is that it spans different sectors. Like there are development economists in finance, in climate, in the environment in general, in health, in education, in I don't know, like name it. They are just, it spans across different sectors. So basically, you're trying to find out what is the best evidence, or the or evidence at all to improve the lives of the people. A typical example is you want to find out how to reduce generational poverty, right? Let's say you notice in a society that there is something that from the beginning of this generation to the current generation, probably centuries long, that they've consistently been poor, right? So as a development economist, some people might come and say, oh, I think these people are not hardworking, it's faith, is their destiny, they're lazy, whatever. As a development economist who comes into that situation, you will come into analyze, you take your time to look at the lives of these people, look at the parameters in their lives, how they differ and how they've performed way more hard than people who are rich in terms of, you can compare it to wheelbarrow push and somebody, I don't know, who is just on their computer selling Bitcoin. You might find out that these people, they are poor probably because their health is not good. Maybe they have some sort of health issues. When they are small, when they are kids, they don't deworm their kids. And because they don't deworm their kids, or when they are children, they don't get dewormed or they don't get vaccinations. And because they don't get this health care, they tend to be sick a lot. And if they are sick a lot, they tend to go to school less. And if they go to school less, of course, they perform badly. And to them, they conclude, oh, I'm not smart. And that way, they lose out on opportunity to use education to make their lives better. Or you can find out that they have some certain norms in their society that probably tells them, oh, especially for women, that tells them, oh, a woman is not supposed to go to school or work, because if you do that, I don't know, no man will want to marry you, So that's what economists will look beyond what is obvious and go deep to find out why is the situation of these people like this, and very importantly, how to improve their lives. I would say as a development economist, you can be working in the applied, what I would call, this is not a term, it's not an established like category, but you can work in the applied sector, mostly, let's say if you're working as an NGO, so the people who actually go to the field or, go to the field to do this, probably give out some sort of cash or some form of resources to people, or you can just be working as a think tank or a researcher in organizations like maybe the World Bank, and of course there are various of them, or even in government agencies where you help the government to implement their policies. And also, the profession of being a development economist, there are some advantages. I wouldn't exhaust the list because there are a lot of them. But what I would say is you tend to make an impact in a large scale. because if you're able to provide an evidence-based policy, governments perhaps are likely to pick it up and implement it, you see? So the work you did with, say, a community or a group of people or a group of firms proves to the government that a certain policy works. And that way the government might decide to adapt it and implement it. The same for also organizations. If you try to prove to them, oh, your the reason why people are not using, let's say, pharmaceutical firms, the reason why people are not using your product is because it tastes like a food they don't like in their community, right? So it will help to make impact. Like, so these pharmaceutical firms would probably change particular content of their drugs, and this would make a huge impact. And probably those drugs is very effective in preventing some certain kind of diseases. And also, just like I said, you can work in a wide range of, sectors, just like I previously said. Testimony over to you.
Okay, that's really good. There are a couple of questions that are coming in here, and I think we can just be delving into them as we progress. So you mentioned you studied economics, and essentially you've actually talked about, maybe indirectly, how research ability is very, very important to excel as a development economist. So are there any other skills that you can recommend to maximize anyone's chances that is looking into becoming a development economist? Are there like any things you can recommend? Maybe somebody's a fresh graduate, studied economics or something else. What are the things, what are like the recommendations you can give to the person to boost their chances of being into development economics? Add another question to it. One of the questions here, say, what are the potential career paths or job opportunities for people that are looking to practice development economics? Like, aside from like the obvious multilateral organizations like the World Bank, what other opportunities are available for them?
Okay, for the skills, thank you, Testimony. For the skills, I think I would talk about the skills, the broad skills. It becomes specific when you enter into a particular, say, organization or a particular sector. Exactly. So broadly speaking, you would need for sure some kind of software skills. For me, since I'm doing more of, I'm working more with household data, individual level data, I use data and a little bit of R, and some people also use Python. So you need software skills. And as a development economist, to be honest with you, mostly data and R should be on top of your list. Of course, with technology, things would evolve. Maybe tomorrow wake up and there's something else to use. But at this point, I think data and R is, I see a lot of job applications that always list, okay, you have to need data or R skills. I think something that is also important is you have to be
that's for data analysis, right?
Yes, that's for data analysis. Okay. Quantitative data analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You also, I think it's also important that you're willing to read a lot of literature. Reading a lot of literature is very, very important in economies because it also broadens your mindset and your knowledge, and it also helps you to see gaps in terms of literature, like what has been done for you to identify a niche for yourself. Something that is very important in development economics is to also have a specialization. You get what I mean? Because the more specialized you are, of course, there are cons to it, but the more specialized you are, the more you become an expert in that place, and more that when people want to, like when people are, let's say, for example, a climate, somehow you work on how climate affects, the livelihood of people. When people who, let's say organizations or firms or individuals, opportunities come that have to do with, climate and how it affects the life of the people, you would immediately come to mind, you see. So it's important that you read, and it helps, for you to specialize. I think it's also a specialization is also a point that I just merged with this point. I think what's also important is you have to be open-minded, because sometimes you think you understand the situation, you understand, the beginning to the end. Oh, come on, it's clear. People are poor because, they are lazy or something. you have to be open-minded, because when you start digging, you realize that what you think it is, what it is, that's not what it is. I think what's also important, testimony has mentioned, is having an MSc is super, super important, especially if you want to grow in the career. And even in some places, a PhD, if you want to be a researcher in development economics. Without a PhD, there is a cap on how much you can go in terms of career. Another skill that is important is networking. I think I cannot overemphasize this point. I think it's important in almost all careers, but networking is very, very important. Then also experience. Like I said, for me, when I finished my MSc, I got this Access Bank job, which, it was all juicy and all that. But then I declined it because I declined it because I knew I didn't want to work in the bank. Of course, nothing is wrong with working in the bank, but personally, that's not what I felt I aligned with the most. I didn't have any other job at the time when I declined it. But one day I was going from Benin to, I'm not sure if it was Lagos or Akure. I saw this NGO by the road. Just before you leave, I don't know how many of you know Benin, just before you get to the junction of Okada. And then that's University of Igbinedion University.
Igbinedion.
And then, yes, exactly. And then I saw this NGO is called Women Health and Research Center, Women Health and Action Research Center. I identified it. And then when I came back from my trip, I went there with my CV and I presented it to them. And I told them, oh, I'm interested in working here. And they looked at my CV, looked at my documents, and they said, okay, you can start working. I was only earning 35,000 or 40,000, I can't remember, compared to what I would have been earning in Access Bank. But at that point, I only had of course, the knowledge from the theoretical knowledge from school. I didn't have the practical experience. I didn't fully understand the content and how to apply this in the world. So when I identified this NGO, I didn't care about the money. I wasn't interested. Well, I was interested in the money because it solved my problem. But I would say I didn't focus on the money. And when I got there, to be honest with you, I tried my best to learn as much as I can. But I also knew that this was not, this is not my destination. This place I'm going to is not my destination. This is only a path. This is only, I don't know, it's not even a spring yet, but somewhere to give me an experience to get to the next level. And then, I started working with them. I gained a lot of experience within a very short period of time. Within 3 months, I got, an interview for Mexico in Abuja. And I will tell you that the reason I got the position in Abuja was because of how I performed in my interview, and how I performed in my interview were 100% based on the experience that I had in the private NGO. So I would say, try to start from somewhere. Like, I know right now it's probably difficult to get a job, but it doesn't have to be big name organizations. Start from somewhere. It could even be in your street. It could even be, not just far away. It doesn't have to be a blueprint organization, a popular organization like World Bank or UN or something. Just it's important to start somewhere. Internships, get experience. It will take you, it will help you also understand which path of development economics you're interested in, and the next step on, where to go. I think the other thing is a little bit above the level that some of us are in right now, but writing research papers are very, very important. I think this is something that, as you start your journey in development economics, you will realize that publishing papers are very important. What it does to you is that it creates visibility, huge visibility to you. I wasn't able to publish my bachelor's degree project, but when I was doing my NYSC, I collaborated with one lecturer at the University of Benin, and then I published a paper. And since then, I've published a couple of papers, even before I got into my PhD. So these things are things that are very, very important, especially to push you to your next level in development economics. I think something else that is very, very important is, this is a basic skill, is being able to write. In research as development economics, it's about telling stories. This is not very obvious, but telling stories is a huge, huge skills, because, and also telling it in a way that people comprehend. And because sometimes you're writing these policy recommendations to governments who don't have economics or high quantitative skills. You're aiming for organizations who all they know is, let's bring our money and give and solve solution. So being able to write in a way that different caliber of people can understand. And also you're telling the story, like you're telling a story. And the more a story is interesting, the more someone, like the reader wants to complete the story. And only when the reader completes the story is the reader able to understand what you're recommending, and also be able to understand what to implement. So I think that's also something important. I think for me, I wouldn't talk about development economics without emphasizing the importance of getting at least a master's degree. And I think you guys have covered how to get scholarships and all that in this program.
Yeah,
yes,
we have.
So I wouldn't discuss that. So it's very, very important. And if you can, try to do it.
Just to jump in there, does the kind of masters matter? Like somebody that has like a master's in, say, mathematics, can the person work on that with like a PhD in development economics? I think it's possible, but I think you have the floor since you know better.
So first of all, to do development economics is easier if you did economics in your background. However, if you didn't do economics in your background, especially if you want to do a PhD in America, having math, physics, the whole any quantitative,
An advantage.
Yes, is a huge. In fact, is a better advantage than somebody who did economics. If you have like physics, math, statistics, even computer science, you guys have big advantage. So I would say, especially this is very specific to the US and the PhD for the US, but at the master's level, they are only, for development economics, they're only building on what you learned in economy. So it's very, very prerequisite is that you have economics in your bachelor's.
Yeah. So for the person that asked the question, simple answer, look at America very well. It might be like a better fit. Yeah. So so that's really good. And just to summarize, to add context to it, I think this aligns with a lot of the things that we've been mentioning that many of the people have been coming here, especially the point on experience. Relevant experience here. So one of the things we do here is to give people clarity. And one of the ways you gain clarity is you know exactly what you want to do and you can connect your experiences to it. So you don't just take opportunities anyhow. You see Jessy now mentioning Access Bank job, and you know that job. That job is a very juicy offer. Like very juicy job, man. Comes with a car and everything. But for you to be able to like reject that and go for another one that is more aligned with your long-term goal, takes a lot of clarity of purpose to be able to do that. So that is something again that everyone on this call should actually be aware of. I will recommend, if you know that this is what you want to do something, it might be in any area at all. It's not just specific to development economics. Try as much as possible to be building your experience, even while you are in school. There are some kind of internship opportunities you can take, even if it is for free. Now, there's remote work. It's like you can be in your house and be working in these things and be exposed. What it does for you is you are more aware. And the more aware you are about things, the clearer your vision, the more you build competence, the more you know what is important and what is not important. And for some of us, for some of you that are still very young, it's better because you can take those dirty jobs when your once your financial responsibilities are not as much like later in life. So you're doing yourself a good service. Thank you very much, Jessy, for mentioning that. So there's another question here. I'll just take that while we're doing this. Are there any specific regions or countries that you believe offer particularly more promising opportunities for development economists? And why? Why do you think those countries present it? Let me rephrase this question, both for the present and the future, based on what you can see.
Okay, before I answer that question, I wanted to just top up on what you said about clarity and trying to get relevant experience or gain relevant experience. Um, I would say something that really helped me to know, to have a picture, a clearer picture of where I wanted to be. Like, I mean, when I was in my bachelor's, where I wanted to be in the next, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, years, was because, for example, somewhere I wanted to work in was World Bank. So already when I was in my bachelor's, I usually go to search for World Bank openings and look for what are their eligibility criteria and the experiences they were looking for. I would tell you that this helped me a lot, and I'm still doing it tomorrow. If you already know, and what that does is that it gives you clarity on the type of things to do to make you eligible and competent enough to get into these roles, right? So is you're not making, I don't know, you're not making a blind journey. You can't say, oh, okay, I want to be, for example, I want to be a development economist. But maybe let me start with finance. You can start with finance, but let's say, maybe let me start with finance. Somehow it will merge and I can claim. You have to get some clarity. It's very, very important, because in what I've observed in the roles of development economists is that when you're being employed, people want to know what have you done, and what have you done has to be relevant for the need their company is looking for to hire a person. So try as much as possible to try. It's not just even just for development economists, for any career at all. If you have an idea of the type of organizations you want to work in the future, go to their website or look at their job openings. Or even some of the things I also did, that people who I knew that worked in the World Bank, I went to read about them to find out the kind of profile they had that made them, to work in the World Bank. And it helps you to also shape your decisions in terms of experience and I don't know, choices of course to do, especially in the university. Um, so regions or countries that are, for me, I would say the race is not a local one. Bros and sis is not a local one. It's an international race. For me, at the point I knew I wanted to study economics, I knew I didn't want to study, I didn't want to limit myself to a particular country. I wanted to work anywhere and everywhere. So I don't think I would tell you confidently, just like saying, oh, which country? For me, I would say it's just like, responding to, oh, which country would you get the best opportunity to be, I don't know, a medical doctor, for example, everywhere, everywhere. So I think what I would most likely focus on is which countries, this is actually a sad one, but I think that's a reality, which countries are more likely to to take you as what are the qualities that will make a country to take you. And that's where having an international, not 100%, but where having an international degree helps a lot. It helps a lot. So that goes back to education. So I would say you can be a development economist anywhere. But based on my experience, I've done it in the US, and I've also done it in Germany, but it's not, the opportunities are not limited to that. And also in Nigeria, the opportunities are not limited to these 3 countries. See, I'm in Namibia right now, and it's because of what I'm doing that brought me here. Tomorrow, I don't know, I'll probably be in Philippines, or probably be in I don't know, Costa Rica or something, or Cuba. So I think the why of it might not really suffice, like it might not really be a response I need to give, because I've already said you can work in any country. What's important to get a degree that is appreciated, or a degree that is acceptable to work in these countries as a development economist.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah. So there is another here is, are there any important ethical considerations that a development economist needs to be aware of when they are working on projects or policies? Are there ethical considerations? And I think this question, I don't know if the person that asked this question, that's where they're coming from. I know that there are a couple of considerations around, especially for private sector run businesses. I know there's increasing consideration for them to do business in an ethical manner. and to be all inclusive. I know development economics implicitly takes care of that, the inclusiveness, but private businesses do not really give it them. Don't care about that. They just want to go for profit. But now increasingly, people are now being more aware, or they call it PPP, of planets, of people, yes, and their profit align with their profit. And how you actually get to those profits is almost as important as achieving those bottom lines. So are there any ethical considerations or challenges that you know of that development economists should be aware of when they are trying to achieve these things?
Yeah, you rightfully mentioned that implicitly, like development economics tries to, since you're trying to make better the lives of the people, especially those at the lowest rung of the ladder, which they are the people mostly we care about their welfare. It's part of the job. It's part of the job description. It comes with, is a follow come. Yes, there are of course even increasingly improving, like they're improving day by day. Before you can do a research in a particular country, you have to get ethical clearance from that country and also probably from the country you're coming from. We cannot do, let's say, for example, we cannot do a research that in any way would harm people or would harm the environment. A typical example is, let's say that you know that there is a particular medication that cures cancer. Somebody shout amen.
Amen. Amen.
There is a particular medication that cures cancer. And in order to do an experiment, so this is discussing, like, I think this is a very deep part of development economics I'm trying to explain about, try to make it as simple as possible. So there's something we call randomized controlled trials or experiments in development economy. So basically what you're doing is, if you want to find a solution to a problem, you want to find the reason why certain things are the way they are. So what you do is that you come to a population, right? And then you divide this population into two. Let's say you come to a community and you divide this community into two, 50 by 50, let's say a community of 100 people, you divide it into 250 and 50. And then one of this group, you implement an intervention on them. And this other group, you don't implement an intervention on them. And then you try to find how this intervention you implemented on them, how it has changed their life or their decisions. And you also compare how these people's lives and decisions have changed, right? Without the intervention. So one of the ethical consideration in this kind of experiment is that if, let's say, the intervention you want to give to group B, which is the group that you're giving the intervention, is, let's say, a medication for cure for cancer, and let's say the 100 of them, they have cancer. And then in experiments, if you give one group intervention, you don't give the other group intervention. So the ethical responsibility of the people of development economists is not to withhold giving this second group the medication for cancer, because in as much as you're trying to find out, oh, does this medication of cancer, for example, work, you're also depriving this group of not getting the medication for cancer, and probably is going to lead to their death. So we have ethical considerations, and I think they are improving over and over, especially when it comes to climate, when it comes to the how it applies people's culture and their norms, also in terms of social, like, context. Like, you can just right now just bring policies from that works in Germany and just dump it in Nigeria. It doesn't work anymore. We also have ethical consideration to involve the local participants in decision making, in mapping out the processes for the research. So there are a bunch of them, and yes, we have it. And you must, in fact, it's most of the journals, before they accept some of the research papers, you have to submit your documentation of ethical clearance. So very much present in the field of development economists.
Yeah, thank you very much for that particular so a follow-up question is, during the course of your practical work, have you experienced any, because you just mentioned now, like, involving the locals, maybe during data collection, how did you break certain barriers, like the differences in culture, differences in language? I don't know if you've experienced that before. How were you able to break that barrier? How were you able to walk through that? Because I know that these are things that might come up during the course of your work.
Definitely, they do come up, like totally. Even just not in work, also when your school, when you're studying in a different country. As an African and English language skills for organizations that want to employ development economists. I would say for the language, be willing to learn. Of course, I did my master's in Germany. I didn't know English. Luckily for us, the course was in English. I didn't know German. Luckily for us, the course was in English, so we didn't need to learn English. But in dealing with your everyday, like going about your everyday business, we needed to learn German, and it's very, very important to be open-minded about it. Also, generally speaking, you have to be open and tolerant of people's culture and languages. It's very, very important, and you have to respect their culture, even though it doesn't make sense to you. Keep some things to yourself. You don't, let's say, for example, you go to somewhere and they eat swallow with spoon. You go to a particular village, or let's even leave that. Let's say, for example, you go to, like, I'm in Namibia, I go to the field. Sometimes you see kids that are very dusty, and probably they have mucus on their nose, and they're coming close to you. You don't just say, go away. No, you're dirty, you have to tolerate it. You have to tolerate, this is who they are. This is not who they are, but this is their situation for whatever reason. You don't have to make them feel like you're better than them. If you see, for example, I try to, as much as possible, to greet them in their local languages and not say good morning or good afternoon. And also, when you're working with them, sometimes allow them to tell them what you think about a decision in the field, especially in a context where you're a foreigner. Tell them about a decision you have and let them make contributions to it, or let them vet it, especially if it's against their culture. Because the truth is that sometimes you might not know that this is against their culture. So you have to run it through by them. At the end of the day, you're the one who might make the decision, but you have to run it through by them. And if there is any need to make adjustments, be willing to do that. So in a nutshell, I think even if you don't know the language, that's completely fine. We work with, it's fine to work with like local supervisor, have a supervisor that is from that region who would do the nitty-gritties that would require the languages, but also be willing to learn, appreciate people's culture, even if it doesn't align with your belief or what, appreciate it. Don't be quick to say, this is not what I know, it's not what I can't change my ways. No, it's going to be very difficult for you in development economics, because the truth is that you're going to see different types of things that you've never been exposed to.
Thank you very much. So aside from these areas that you mentioned, I know you talked about the different kind of interventions that you did while at World Bank. Like, can you tell us about like what are and you talked about climate. Aside from these climate areas, can you tell us like about what the future of development economics is going to look like in the next couple of years? Are there specific areas that are quite exciting? Yes, it doesn't mean that some people here might be looking to specialize and find like a sweet spot for themselves, which I think is going to be important to just make them stand out. But are there areas you're increasingly seeing that are becoming more interesting or more exciting with time, that you feel like people should be taking note of this?
I would say this has nothing to do with the work I did in the World Bank. I'm not supposed to say some certain things about work, but I would say what I think is that climate and environment is becoming a very, like, the market for economists or even development economists in this area is becoming increasingly large. So I think this is, if it's not clear to you where to specialize in already, you can just check these places out, read the literature, search for job opportunities in these areas. They're very, 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 I think I would say in the near future, because I don't think I can see 5 or 10 years from now what could happen. But I think in the near future, from the way things are going, this is a good spot. Also, I really can't relate. Also, energy. I feel energy is something, but that doesn't mean the other places they are not recruiting, or the people are not training. These are just probably they are booming right now because probably the demand for them just started and it started booming, but still the other ones remain relevant, like the typical ones on poverty, hunger, health, education. There's still need for them. But I'm not sure I can confidently say what will happen in the future in the next 10 years. You might be surprised if it would just be something completely different from what we know or what we think.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is quite insightful. So I'm going to be opening the floor to questions, 2-3 questions, and we're fine. You can ask your questions, and Jessy can just answer that question. So just why we are at it, I just wanted to like throw in something too. So Jessy has said a couple of things here that I think they are very, very fundamental. And I think these are things that they've been repeated. So I don't know, for some of you that are Christians, when they say when 2 or 3 people say something, it is confirmed. I don't know if I said it well. But what that implies is there are certain things that have been mentioned: experience, networking, writing skills, and trying to like put yourself out there. Research. I don't know so much about like traditional research, like the way it should be done, because again, I don't have a master's degree, so I might not know that. But one of the things I understand is if you're someone that reads a lot and you do a lot of reading, you see that you start developing this mind. They call it gapology. That's the term. It's like an gapology. That's the fact that you can identify gaps very, very quickly in things. These are some of the things that can just spark your interest if you're someone that's interested in development and start even putting things out. I don't think even before you go for your master's degree, I don't think it has to be like the structured writing. The fact that you're even putting out work in these areas, I think is a signal that this person has something, and I feel like you'll be better compared to somebody that does not even have anything, especially when you are considering for further studies. And I think it's something that we should also be taking more advantage of. Secondly is being very creative. People tend to like underestimate the power of being creative about things. Yes, everybody is doing this, but what kind of flavor can you bring to it? I know I was discussing with Faith at a point in time about what we're going to do with research work. That's going to start maybe next month or 2 months time. Traditional research has typically been written down like the normal standard way. Some of the things you can do, you can write your paper and even do like a 5 minutes video explaining it, when it comes to the storytelling parts that Jessy was talking about. These are some of the, you are doing the same thing, but you're doing it differently. Like if you do something like a 5 minutes video that's just like go through the main points about how it affects the people, talk about some stories, or maybe based on like the sample people you studied or whatever, you send that to like a professor, maybe you're applying for school. That person is going to give you, you are going to get person's attention more than other thousands of people that are going to like do something differently. If you maybe you research the professor, you know the person's interest very well, and maybe what you're doing is kind of attached to what he's doing, even if it is not, the fact that you are being different is going to be an indication. And this cuts across any kind of career you're looking at, any kind of career at all. You just tend to like study more, put out things more, be more productive, and be very creative. There are different ways you can be creative, because this world needs a lot of creativity. It needs a lot of creativity, development economics inclusive. I just wanted to put this out there so that for every single thing we are doing, we need to put this into consideration. Above all, be very intentional. See Jessy, she has from university, she was my classmate. Like I can attest to the fact she's very brilliant. Forget this kind of humble things she's doing here. Very, very brilliant person. And one of the things that set her apart amongst a lot of people was the fact that she has been very intentional, very, very intentional. Like from a very, very from far back from school, she's one of the few persons that knew exactly what they wanted to do and moved towards it and worked towards it. Being intentional very early helps a lot. It cuts out the noise. You don't have to start going to do, you go and do engineering. Then after that, you now say you want to do something else. Like there is no alignment. You just pursue things that are very ephemeral. Because at the end of the day, yes, we'll say we are looking for money, but you have to decide, do you want the money today and leave it tomorrow? Or do you want something that can compound very, very quickly within a short period of time? So you just decide. One thing about being very linear, sort of like you pursue things that are very intentional, is that they compound and the benefits are just too much. Just like bank. You can't compare marginally what an MD earns to what somebody that's just starting today earns. They are like, the leverage is too much. And even if the MD loses his job, he can go to another bank very, very easy and still be an MD. Someone that just starting his career today might not even have that kind of leverage. So those are the kind of leverage you want to do. You want to compound on those things. So the beginning might not really be cool. You might just decide to take that small job, put out that article that is seemingly small, take up that role, those roles that you feel like these people are not paying me much, do that master's degree that you've been pushing for a very long time, and you see that it will pay off handsomely. Yeah, just wanted to put that out so that everyone, like, at the end of the day, push up. Okay, Emmanuel.
All right, hi everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Jesse. I really did enjoy this session, and an icing on the cake will be the being intentional about whatsoever career path you've chosen to go with. But then I also understand that from an individual perspective, looking to go into development economics, I'm just talking generally now in terms of earnings, like how you can earn, because aside passion and all of that, you get paid salary and whatnot. But from the organization's perspective, how do they earn from, let's say they have a division called development economics, or looking to even start up something, still like an NGO. How do these things transition into money generation for the firm? I would like to really get your perspective on that.
Yeah, definitely. So most times people who do development work sponsor their activities, including salary, is through donors. And also sometimes, let's say for the World Bank, of course, it's a multilateral organization. So donors are like every country you can think about. And it's also a bank, even though it's also a development institution, it's also a bank. So they also invest some of their money. So that's like, I think that's, at the apex of how they generate their money. But most NGOs is mostly donors. Like when I was working in Mexico, it's a US owned international organization. So the US was sponsoring it. When I was working in the private local NGO, the boss then was always writing proposals and getting funding. So mostly it's basically they don't generate income. They are non-profits, and I think what is I would expect next is how long would this funding keep coming? I think don't worry about it. There are people that would always be willing to sponsor good cause, to change the lives of people, to improve the lives of people. So I wouldn't worry so much about it. And for me, what has helped me not to be disappointed, or well, I've not been disappointed, but something that I've preferred to focus on is not what I earn, because if you're doing a good job, you will earn good, right? Most of the time, especially just like testimony said, when you've accumulated experience over time. So I think I'll be more interested in doing a good job. And the more good job you do, the more you grow in your career, the more bigger organizations can take you, and the more you earn, the more you earn. So like I said, most of their activities are sponsored by donors, and so don't worry about it. At the individual level, just keep trying to improve yourself so you can grow to the next level. Because I remember when I used to work in Nigeria, what a lot of people, I don't know if this is good or if it's best practice or it's probably dangerous for the industry, I mean within NGOs, was people move around NGOs. There was kind of this on informal rule that when you move from one NGO to the next, your salary increases. So you see within a space of 5 years, people have worked in 3 NGOs, because as they're leaving to the next NGO, they are telling you, oh, I've worked in this position in this previous NGO, so now I'm ready to work in the higher level, which is probably something you won't get within the same organization you're working in, because probably the growth tendencies are a little bit low. So there are strategies to improve your salary and, you know, within development economies. And once you get into it, you identify it. And if you want to make a lot of money within a short period of time, definitely you can achieve it. Just, you know, apply those strategies.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jessy. I think someone else asked a question, which is, what is the difference between development economics and other parts of economics? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know what's different from the, I wouldn't, this is not a, like, how I put it? I won't outrightly say, okay, this is how development economies differs from other parts of economics. What I can do is to, you know, explain a little bit what development economics is, and then probably it would help to see clearer how it could differ from other parts of economics. But let me start from the broader sense. So there's macroeconomics and there's macroeconomics. If you're economist, you know that. So this is studying economics at like a country level, you know, the largest unit of I don't know, unit of
Economic agent.
like
Yeah.
basic economic agent. And then micro is lower, like firms and individuals. So even within development economics, we have for macro and we have for micro. So it's not really a micro-macro kind of dichotomy. But development economics focuses mainly on improving the economic and well-being of people in low and middle income countries, right? You can be practicing this from US. US is a high income country. You can be practicing it from Germany. Germany is a high income country. But your job, regardless of where you are, is focused on people in, say, Nigeria and other low and middle income countries. So I think it might be different from finance in terms of the finance probably doesn't, financial economics, they don't separate or they don't focus only on low and middle income countries. They focus on finance everywhere, like high, low, middle income countries. It might be different from climate economics in the sense that climate, of course, climate, you can't disaggregate the effect of climate to a particular type of country, but globally. So I would just say that developing economies, how I think it differs is based on the definition, the fact that it focuses mainly on middle and low income countries.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much on that. So for Emmanuel, to also add some things to the question you asked, just like Jessy said, I think the focus more is on, I don't know if this is good advice, but I will just say it anyway. I'll just say it anyway. If you have something you want to do, that you are really passionate about, just do it. I think I'm an ardent believer of the fact that the universe have a way of quote unquote rewarding people that do things that they are really passionate about. Again, as I said, I don't know if you would take this advice, but I just had to say it. And here is why. For development economics, for example, the fact that it studies, it helps improve the well-being of low middle income people. There are some kind of transferable skills. The fact that you are groomed in research can be like an advantage for even doing something else. I know a couple of people that have maybe started their career, worked in World Bank, and then they are now maybe heading like the course of a private organization. That is, at that capacity, they are acting as a CEO level. Because if you are like going along with what is happening in the world today, you know that there's increasing focus on sustainability. People are talking about ESG and all these things. I don't think there's anybody better placed or better focused to lead the ESG efforts of a private organization, even as big as Google, than somebody that has a strong background in development economics. I don't think so. If there's any other person that is better placed, maybe the person had to had done a couple of things. You understand? So I think beyond the discipline of development economics or anything, for example, there are some transferable skills that can eventually help you. You know, today the president of the World Bank, Ajibanga, was like private sector person,
Every
finance
sector
person,
guy.
private finance. For him to have been able to like I know there are a lot of politicking that goes there, but for him to have been able to transition, there were transferable skills that he took from, was it Visa or MasterCard? I don't know. I think
Mastercard.
MasterCard to move to the World Bank. So at that senior level, at the very, very senior level, or at this junior level, the most important thing is to gather skills, gather experience within that, and move along the lines. When you get to that point in time, it equilibrates. At that point, at that top, like it's really equilibrates because it's about leadership skills, the fact that you've led people, the fact that you can influence people, the fact that you played your politics really well, and there's the fact that you understand research in itself is really a big. So beyond saying that this set of people earn more, or you are making more money for an organization, because that is essentially what money is for development economics. That's the outcome, is actually the fact that people's well-being are improved. That's their KPI, that people's well-being is improved. Yes, that's the truth.
No, in I don't know if you're done, but also in addition to that, I think development economics is also, it has always been there, but I don't know if you guys know of the people who the three researchers that got this Nobel Prize in economics in 2019, Esther Duflo and all them, Kramer and Abijat. Like even the private sectors now, right? They want to appear as good people, so they have this corporate social responsibility. Well, it has been there, exactly. It's been there, but now
they are more like they are pushing that even more.
Exactly, because whether we like it or not, because now the society has even evolved. If you notice on social media, if an organization does something they don't like, everybody starts talking about them and people withdraw probably their investment, or people stop patronizing them. So even private sector, they want to be in the good books of the people. And how can you be in the good books of the people? Is by helping the people, especially the poor. So for me, I would, in addition to what testimony has said, I think I would stick to knowing the job. The truth is that even as a development economist, you can work in places that you will earn somebody who is working in, I don't know which career people think earns more, like a medical doctor of the US. You can work in places like that. But why is not so obvious, or people in finance, why is not so obvious is that people who work as development economy tend to talk less about the financial reward and focus on, the psychological or,
the bigger
impact.
Picture.
Exactly, the bigger picture. But the truth is that just know what you're doing. And it's even the same in all careers. Like you can go to become a manager of when you've not proven that you can actually manage, that you have the skills to be a manager. So just for me, I would just focus on just do a good job, try to understand, make impact, have key achievements. Is very, very important. But these days I tell people, when you're writing your CV, don't say responsibilities or activities you did in a position, write key achievements, and if possible, state them in measurable terms, and let it be as obvious as possible.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And just to add to that, I think it was BlackRock. BlackRock lost a lot of investment, I think about $1 billion or 2 billion. I don't know the exact year now, because they were accused, not accused anyway, because it found out that many of their funds was channeled to companies that are anti-climate. They lost that. So it just goes back to the fact that business has gone beyond just the direct relationship between the revenue, cost, and profits. Now, the fact that your brand can be affected, and which will still affect your bottom line if you are not conscious of these things, because the world is becoming increasingly complex. I saw a particular news, was it day before yesterday? They were the International Public Reporting Standard in the US has mandated there has to be, like, there's not a standard for climate, for ESG reporting in every financials. This is something that a lot of countries are taking cognizance of every single time. So, and it just implies that you have to be a bit more holistic, more impact driven, in your approach to life, even in any sector you are in. And that goes back to the question that somebody asked about ethical consideration and whatever. These are things that you need to be increasingly be aware of, the unseen things, the unseen impacts of your work. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's it.
All
Any
right,
other
thank
question?
you, testimony and just
All right.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
no question. So, but I just wanted to clarify that I asked because I felt like these organizations tend to like they are committing to a good cause, obviously trying to make impact. I just wanted to understand how they get the money to do that. Do you get my point? Not generally just trying to measure if it's a rewarding career or not, but generally just to understand how they get the money to like drive this impact, which they're like pushing for.
Yeah, it's mostly aid. It's mostly aid. The same way that it's mostly aid. Let me just put it in a nutshell. You will be surprised how much countries are giving towards the cost of development. It's a huge amount. So I don't think it's going to cease anytime soon. Like, because if once you've started doing something good and you get praises for it, it's difficult to stop. Yeah, so donors, mostly through aid and donations.
Okay. Yeah, I think this will be all for now. Jessy, any last words, any final words for us?
Definitely.
Especially for people that are looking to, like, they are looking to get into development economics. They are like starting their career, just finished school, going for NYSC.
I think what I would say is, I have a lot to say, but I'll try to be as brief as possible. If you want to if you're interested in doing development economics and you're doing your NYSC now, I would advise to use your NYSC time, as in the best possible way. One way is to start looking for admission or scholarships for your next level. If you have a good, I think 2-1, probably 2-2, but with some experience, but 2-1 upward. If you have it in your bachelor's as an economy student, you can even jump straight to a PhD in economics. But of course, there are some prerequisites and some requirements you have to meet up. So if you're interested in doing MS in development economics and you think your next step is going to school, I would advise you use your NYSC days to start researching for schools. What are the requirements? If you need to write a GRE, or if you need to take some extra courses. If your plan is not to go to school yet, abroad, I mean, but to probably gain some experience, it's also important that you also start researching the kind of, let's say, NGOs, think tanks, or research institutes that you would be interested in, so that even as you're doing your NYSC, you would already even start applying to them. Because the truth is that some of these things, they take time, not necessarily because you probably didn't get the first one, but also some application, like employment process take time from when you submit your application to when you get it. Imagine all the stages, it takes time. So I would advise, don't just see your NYSC period as a time to, we have, of course, you can do all those things, but also try to use it as a moment to set up the stage for your next step. What I would give as an advice, these tips, they cut across any career path you want to take or any decisions you want to take in life, is testimony has said you have to be very intentional. It's very, very important. The second one is you have to be confident. This is something that some of these things I'm listing, when I'm listing them, I'm sure you guys have heard about it, but why I'm listing them again is that these are, I don't know if I would call them skills, or these are attitudes that our culture in Nigeria, they don't uphold. But these are the same attitudes that when you come out of Nigeria and you find yourself in the world, which is very competitive, these are the things that make you stand out and help you achieve. You have to be confident and try as much as possible. There's always something I hear when I work in a diverse place, especially for Africans. They tell you not only talk, but if you're not sure of something, don't be quick to say it. Try to say things that, to a large extent, that when you say it, people are going to turn and look at who said this. And when you're saying it, say it with confidence. Let's not carry our, the in Nigeria, they tell you, oh, you're too proud, you're too opinionated, you shouldn't be talking like that. You should be saying yes, sir, yes, ma. Here, nobody cares about yes, sir, yes, ma. In fact, to the biggest of the bosses, we call them by the first name. What everyone wants is that you're doing a good job. So be confident. Also have, if you have a, so be confident. Don't be shy, don't try to be timid, don't try to be humble. Humility doesn't help. It doesn't help. Whatever you've done, when you're writing it in your essay and in your CV, write it with pride. Write it in a way that shows that this is an achievement, no matter how little it is. Don't try to be modest. I know this is a weird advice, but I think I'm sure people understand what I'm saying. Something else is be ready. Don't be scared of rejection. And when I mean rejection, I mean both in terms of application and also in terms of when you ask people for support or guidance. When you start making different applications, it's possible that you get a lot of rejections. Just know that it's fine. Some people, if they tell you the story of how they got to where they are, you'll be surprised. I've heard people say before they got into a particular organization, they made hundreds of applications. I'm not kidding you. So you have to be persistent. Don't be scared of rejection. If they reject you, go to the next one. If you get rejected, go to the next one. If you get rejected, go to the next one. Just keep pushing. And for every rejection, try as much as possible to learn from it, so that whatever mistake possibly you made that made you get rejected, try to find out it. You can even write the organization and say, oh, you guys didn't give me this position. Please, can you explain to me how to make my application better or something? That's what I'm saying. Also, don't be afraid to ask questions, because a closed mouth is a closed destiny. Reach out to people, ask them, oh, I'm interested in what you do. Reach out to professor, I'm interested in what you do. This is what I've achieved. This is how I think it will be relevant to what you're doing now. The highest thing they'll tell you is no, but don't stop asking. Something else I'll say is, don't allow anybody to intimidate you, especially when you go abroad, and don't allow what the society thinks about, especially the African race or even Nigerians. We have a reputation. Don't allow you to stop you. Just be confident. Like I say, know who you are, hold up to your values, try to do your work. You realize that when you come out, as an African, when you're in a place with different people from different continents, sometimes you need to prove yourself twice as much as every other person there for people to actually think that you're up to the, you're equal to the task. Well, sadly, it's a stressful and unfair thing to do. But my point is, if your aim is to get to the peak, allow yourself go through the process. Allow yourself to do twice as much normally. And at the end of the day, when you get to that peak, nobody's going to ask you, how did you get there? Nobody wants to hear, the story of how you failed, how many times you failed. I'm not saying you should tolerate bad behaviors from people or accept bad. Of course, you shouldn't. But my point is, don't allow any negativity to stop you in whatever you're doing. The goal and the focus should always be, what is that my goal I want to achieve? What is that dream? What is that peak I want to get to? And just keep moving until you get there. And I confidently believe that all of you will definitely get to the peak you're looking for. And I wish you guys all the best. I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you, Testimony, for inviting me. And thanks to everyone who participated today. Your presence is also a motivation for me as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jessy. And thank you for these nuggets. And most importantly, thank you for taking your time out to actually speak with us today. It's something that is really important. I know that lives have changed. It's not only in church that your lives change. Your lives also change in this way. I, for one, have actually gotten a couple of things. Okay, someone is asking for your social media handle. If you're comfortable with that, you can share it with the group there so that they can pick it up. And again, as we say, pick these lessons, add them to your life, and then let's start seeing changes as fast as possible. Again, thank you very much, Jessy, for joining us on such short notice. And thank you very much. Maybe for next time we'll reach out again, and we hope that you adhere our call at the time. Maybe then we'll see testimonies of people that have taken these steps, this advice, and then have probably advanced in their careers. Thank you once again. Everyone, thank you very much for making our time to join us here. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to either she has dropped some of her links, social media. If not, you can send an email to cfoafricahq@gmail.com. We'll forward it to her. And then if you need advice, especially, you can reach out to her. Please, as we said during our session on reaching out, you know what to do. It has to, like, you know that these are very busy people. And if you don't get the response immediately, you can reach out, and then we can just send a message on your behalf. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye.